Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are back at it with getting the hang of HyperScribe. Now, I'm going to show you a really interesting thing that we can do with HyperScribe, which I think maybe some of you can take advantage of. Um, the one advantage that HyperScribe has over simple and speedy entry is that HyperScribe will actually record a layer of raw MIDI data. In other words, you'll get velocities and durations and timing, as well as controller data like sustained pedals or pitch bends or stuff like that. You'll sort of get a layer of that data, and then over top of that, Finale will interpret that data and try to transcribe that into notes that it will put on the staff. With speedy and simple entry, you put the notes on the staff, and then the MIDI data gets interpreted from there. And the MIDI data that gets interpreted is very stagnant. It's very precise. It's not very human, which is why Finale added that quote-unquote human playback, which attempts to, sort of fix that, but it doesn't quite get there all the way. With HyperScribe, you're actually recording that live performance, and it will play back that live performance via that raw MIDI data exactly as you play it. So if you're kind of getting where I'm going with this, we can use HyperScribe to our advantage to basically create hidden playback data. And this will come in handy if you do a lot of things that use slashes, like a lot of pop rock, popular styles of music and theater and stuff where you may have a lot of slashes like I do in this particular file. With the rhythm parts and the guitar and the piano in the second half, I've got slashes all the way through. And if you've dealt with this music a lot in Finale, you'll know that one of the disadvantages is that underneath those slashes, you won't hear anything. So in this first half, you hear the piano because there's notes, but there's no guitar. And then the second half, where they both go to slashes, all you're hearing is the bass and drums, which is, it's sort of disappointing if you're trying to hear what it is you're creating, right? So if you're getting where I'm going, I'm going to show you how to use HyperScribe to record data underneath these slashes, all right? And I think this is a handy trick. So really it's quite simple actually. Just go into HyperScribe and I'll record the guitar part. We're going to start at the very beginning and we'll see what we can do. Right, and HyperScribe will always add an extra measure at the end, so just delete that. And you'll see there's still slashes there, but when we play back from the beginning, now there's a guitar part. And it sounds exactly like I just played it, with these little rolls included. Right, so that's kind of nifty. And actually, if you go into speedy entry and you can open up the frames of all these measures here, and you'll actually see that that data is there. Now, this is Finale's attempt to transcribe this data, but you're not seeing it because the slash region is actually hiding it, right? So there is one problem with this that I'm going to help you solve. If you notice, particularly on the second system, the slashes get kind of screwed up in their spacing. It's not very evenly, like in the second bar, there's a lot of space between the fourth slash and the bar line. This is because by default, Finale is trying to incorporate those hidden notes into the music spacing. There's a couple ways to deal with this. One is better than the other. I'll show you the one that's not as good first, and that's in the document options. If we go find, where is it, music spacing, there's an option to avoid collisions of hidden notes. So if we uncheck that, theoretically, this should allow Finale to ignore those hidden notes, which it does a little bit better job of, as you can see. But unfortunately, it's not exactly perfect for some reason, particularly when you go to a part. You can still see that it's not, there's not a lot of great results that way, right? Let's go back to the score. And go back to document options and undo that. So let's recheck that. I'm going to show you a better way to do this. I think the better way is to actually move all of the notes into layer 4. So just select that guitar part, choose edit, move, copy layers. We're going to copy contents of 1 into layer 4. Okay, and now you'll see that if I go into layer 4 now, the blue notes appear. Right, so now all that data exists in layer 4. And then go back to document options, and now we're going to find the layers pane. And in layer 4, what we're going to do is uncheck effects music spacing and hit apply, and we're good to go. And we should get similar results. It looks fairly decent, sort of usable, except in the guitar part, it's still not quite perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to trick Finale into making this absolutely perfect. So I'm going back to layer 1 with speedy entry. You could do this with simple entry too. And literally I'm just going to put in 4 quarter rests in each bar. And what this does, it's allowing Finale to, it's actually giving Finale something to space, because the layer 4 notes are hidden. We're not spacing layer 4, but it's just considering the layer 1 notes, and it's spacing it nice and even for you, right? And in the score, we'll do the same thing. It looks pretty good. All right, so that's how you would deal with that. And so I'm going to show you the same thing in the piano part. And actually what we can do is record directly into layer 4 this time, right, instead of layer 1. And the one thing I want to point out about piano parts, you can use a sustain pedal if you want, but for some reason, HyperScribe, when it records controller data, the controller data has to be all within the confines of each music frame. So, for example, a sustain pedal can't hold over between one bar to the next for whatever reason. It's just a limitation of how it handles it. And if you do sort of get your sustain pedal crossed over a bar line, you'll get some weird results where things won't exactly work very well. So you just have to be cautious about using the sustain pedal sparingly, and certainly not over the bar line. But I'll use it a little bit in the bar 5 through 8 here in the piano part. So we'll put some more piano music in this. Here we go. All right, and created my extra bar. Thank you. And there we go. And now, again, it's all in layer 4, right? And incidentally, you notice that I just did it in the top staff. It doesn't matter what staff you do it in, right? In fact, because it's going to record the data, all the way up and down the keyboard. So you really only have to do it for one staff. And then we can do the same thing in layer 1, entering those quarter notes. This will fix the slashes better in the part. All right. And there you go. Now, the other neat thing that we can do is we can actually do this for measures of music that have notes in it. Like, the first 4 bars of the piano part, they're there. They don't necessarily sound that great, right? In the piano part, very stilted, very, metronomic and whatever. And but if we want, we could actually record invisible data in these bars too. But this would require a couple of things. Obviously, we would want to hide or mute the playback for the measures that are here, right? There's a couple of ways to do this, and I'll show you both. One is to actually take the music and move it to another layer. In this case, let's move it to layer 3. And then in the document options, we can, in layer 3, we can actually uncheck playback. So now everything in the file in layer 3 will not play back. All right, so now layer 3 is muted and you don't hear that piano part. From here, we can record into layer 4 and hide notes in layer 4, right? But let's just deal with the muting. The other way to do this is, instead of moving it to layer 3, let's move it back to layer 1. If you have the JW plugin set, and if you don't, I strongly recommend that you get it. We can use the JW change plugin. In the note entries section, there is an option for playback, and we can actually mute all of that. And if you hit apply, essentially Finale will mute the playback for those 4 bars in layer 1. So now we're not hearing it, right? So that's 2 different ways to actually get the playback muted. Moving into layer 3 is fine. You just have to be careful if there's other notes later on in the score that are in layer 3. You won't hear them, so just be aware that that's a global setting across all instruments. So you just have to be careful about that. So from here, I've got layer 1 muted in this case, and what I'm going to do is, again, record directly into layer 4. And I'm going to record basically this, but I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more human, so we can sort of get a better playback for that. All right, so let's see if I can do just that. And we'll do it in the, actually, let's do it in the left hand this time. All right, and there you go. And now you'll see all of the notes in layer 4, right? And that's obviously we're going to have to deal with that. And easy enough, we can do this with a staff style. So in the staff tool, select these measures, and let's define a staff style. And let's create a new one and call it hide layer 4. And we want alternate notation checked, right? Settings, blank notation, apply to layer 4. And other layers will leave all the notes and everything, etc., etc. Click OK, click OK. So we've defined it, and now we have to apply it. Apply staff style to score and parts. Hide layer 4. And there you go. And now we have the notes that I originally put in Speedy entry in that in those first 4 bars, but we're going to hear the playback, the live performance that I just did. And then it continues on into the slashes. All right, so that's a kind of a nifty thing. If you can take advantage of HyperScribe in this manner, and you know, get something that's a lot more real sounding, for particularly for rhythm instruments of this sorts. All right, so hopefully this has helped. Thanks for watching, and I think I maybe have one more video left on HyperScribe, so come back for that, and I'll see you soon.